All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little San Francisco Giant video. Giants coming from behind the last couple of days and knocking off the Pirates and are starting to look a little bit better. And yet there's a story out there that I saw on Bleacher Report that really intrigued me and one that I want to talk about. So the Giants are starting to come around. They're starting to come around offensively and just in general. They've got Blake Snell back. He's pitching a little bit better. I think now with the win this afternoon over the Pirates, they've won like 9 of the last 14, or maybe it's 10 of the last 15, but they're averaging close to 6 runs a game during this stretch. And they really, if you look at their needs, I mean, they've got pitching and they got more pitching coming this summer. I love the depth of the bullpen. I mean, you got Randy Rodriguez throwing 100, you got Doval throwing 100, you got the Rogers brothers, you got the lefty Miller. You've got Sean Jelly as a long man, the guy who can pitch every day. Forget his name. He's the opener. That guy's nasty, throwing 98. They've got relievers, and if they get Alex Cobb back middle of the year, they get Robbie Ray off the injured list, they might be able to take 2 more big time arms like Hicks and Wynn and throw those guys in the pen. And then they may have just a totally dominating bullpen. So pitching wise, I kind of like what I'm seeing from the Giants. I love the fact that they're leaning on Ramos and Matos and Luciano and the youth. They should have done this from the start, but they didn't. The guy who's probably the all-star for the Giants is Lamont Wade Jr., who's got close to a 400 on base. And he's been a platoon player, but he's playing really, really well. He's a left-handed hitter. He's a platoon hitter against right-handed pitching. But, man, when you're getting on base with like a 450 clip or something like that in a platoon role, that's pretty good. But you look at the Giants, and they lost Jung-Hoo Lee. And if you said, well, how did the Giants get on the level of the Dodgers? Well, that may be a ways off. But how do they get on the level of the teams that are going to be front and center for the final couple playoff spots? I think it's improved their offense. And with the loss of Jung-Hoo Lee, I think the Giants ought to look for an addition. Now, what kind of addition do they need? They need a middle of the lineup presence. And there's a lot of talk that Toronto, who's having a bad year, is going to move Vladdy Jr. and Bo Bichette. And Vladdy Jr., to me, makes a lot of sense for the Giants. You could put Lamont Wade in an outfield corner and, let him play a little bit more outfield now that you don't have Jung-Hoo Lee, and he's done for the entire season. He's out for the year with a shoulder injury. So you're going to play Matos as much as you can in center and maybe a little Yaz from time to time out there. But you're down an outfielder. And why not add Vladdy, play him at first base, and let Lamont, let late night Lamont play a corner flank outfield spot and go that route. If you want to run with the Dodgers in the playoffs, if you want to run with the best teams in the National League for a wild card spot, you better be able to swing the bat. And, you had Matt Chapman, who was teammates with Vladdy in Toronto a year ago. And if you think about it, you get Vlad Guerrero Jr. You put him in this lineup with Chapman, who's starting to swing it, Wade, who's been swinging it, Jorge Soler, who's getting hot, Michael Conforto when he gets healthy, and now you got something. And Bleacher Report proposed this trade. It was the Giants getting Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and trading to Toronto Bryce Eldridge, and cash. So it will be Eldridge, who's the Giants' number 2 prospect on the MLB Top 100. I think he's number 70 overall. He's only 19. He's at San Jose in the Cal League, so he's in Single A. He's not close to being ready. So, I mean, it's going to, and let's be honest. I mean, I know there's a lot of people going, oh my God, don't move Bryce Eldridge. We've been saying that about Giants prospects forever. Don't move Jerome Williams. Don't move Kurt Ainsworth. Oh my God, whatever you do, you can't move Jesse Foppert. Do not trade Gary freaking Brown. I mean, it's like, we've been playing this game forever. The Giants have so many prospects who were kick ass in the Cal League only to just evaporate when they get to the Eastern League. Or they're so good in Double A, but they just get to Triple A and suddenly they can't do anything, or they just fall apart I mean, you think about you can go back and look, type into Google, Baseball America top 10 prospects, and type in, the last 5 years, and you'll see all kinds of names on there that were, oh yeah, remember that guy? That guy was supposed to be really good. Yeah, what happened to that guy? He crapped out. What happened to this guy? He wasn't good enough. I mean, we're now seeing Matos and Ramos but I mean, for every guy like Matos and Ramos and Luciano who's going to make it, there's probably, 7 to 10 other guys who were billed as stars in the Cal League and in the Eastern League, and they just crapped out and they just didn't make it. That's how hard it is to play Major League Baseball. So I realize Eldridge is 19 and he's got a ton of potential. He's a huge kid, big power hitter. And I get it. I mean, I understand that he's got a, on paper, he potentially has a really bright future. The Giants also have to be concerned a little bit about the luxury tax threshold. It's 253.9 million. But man, they spent an awful lot of money to go and jump off now. You know, Scared money don't make money. They got and these prospects. You really, I mean, seriously, if I told you bet everything you have on Bryce Eldridge becoming a star or Bryce Eldridge never making it, and you had to bet everything you own on one outcome or the other, are you really betting that Bryce Eldridge is going to be a star when he's 19 years old and single A, has never conquered double A, never conquered triple A? I would say if he makes it, it's going to be 3 years from now. He'll probably be, 22 at that point, still a relatively young man. But I mean, we're talking about Eldridge. If he makes it, is probably 3 years away. If you're Farhan Zaidi, do you have 3 years? I don't know. Maybe contractually you do, but I don't know, man. If I was him, I wouldn't necessarily be putting hitching my wagon to Bryce Eldridge and what he's going to do in 2027. Odds are you're not going to be in that seat in 2027. So I really think I would pull the trigger on this. Even if Eldridge becomes a really good player in 3 years, so what? Who cares? Vladdy's 25 years old. He's got a 374 on base percentage this year. 2019, he came up to the big leagues as a 20-year-old. In 2021, he hit 48 home runs and drove in 111. Last year, he had 26 home runs and drove in 94. He's a 279 lifetime hitter. So it's not like he's like some all or nothing, he's some gigantic home run guy and then he hits 210. No, he's a 280 hitter. He's a good hitter. You could hold on to Eldridge and just make a big play for the polar bear, but how many times are you going to tease your fans with we're going after the top free agent? We know, we've heard that story before, that we know how that ends. You don't get them. You get dragged around by the nose for a month, and then the guy signs with the Dodgers or the Yankees. That's what's going to happen. So don't tell me about polar bear. Oh, they can go. Don't hold on to Eldridge and then just sign the polar bear in the offseason. Polar bear's not signing here. He's an East Coast guy. He's playing for the Mets. You're not willing to overpay to the level to get him, and he's probably not willing to sign up to play ball games in your park, which will kill his next contract. So this idea that you're going to go sign a premier free agent, you were going to get Harper, but you didn't. You were getting Giancarlo Stanton, but you didn't. You're getting Judge, but you didn't. You're getting a Shohei Ohtani, but you didn't. You're getting Cody Bellinger, but you didn't. You're getting Rhys Hoskins. He's from Sacramento. He'll love playing here, but he signed in Milwaukee. Do you see what I'm saying? You're never getting big-time hitters via free agency. And the Giants, under multiple regimes, have shown very little ability through multiple decades and all kinds of different farm directors to handicap the amateur draft and actually draft big-time hitters. I mean, seriously, in my entire lifetime, going back to like when I was 5, like the only big-time guys the Giants have developed, Chili Davis, Will Clark, Matt Williams, and then Buster, Belt, and Sandoval. That's it. in like 35 fucking years. So don't tell me they're going to develop Bryce Eldridge. I don't believe it. Don't tell me Bryce Eldridge is going to be the next Mark McGuire. I ain't buying it. If you're Farhan, this is the move you got to make. You're not getting the polar bear in free agency. You're not going to be the only, you're going to have to keep, if the Giants are going to win, they're going to have to draft and develop pitchers. And then they're going to have to, and they have a good eye for that. And they've had success doing that. They're going to have to keep that rolling, that role going. They're going to have to draft and develop pitchers. And then they're going to have to trade off of their surplus of pitching for young position players and then try to extend them. And that's what trading for Vladdy would be. Vladdy's 25, and you can put him at first base, and he's a presence. He is a presence. And maybe you could get him to sign long-term. Maybe. You know, the Giants tried to get his daddy. Didn't work out. He went to the Angels. Go get Vlad Jr. Go get Vlad Jr. And who cares? If it costs you Eldridge, so be it. 3 years from now, if everything works perfect with Eldridge, he'll be Vladdy. 3 years from now, if he can somehow conquer Cal League, AA, Eastern League, and the PCL and make it to the major leagues, you're talking about a guy who, you know, we're talking about now we're in 2024. So 2025 is next year, 2026. We're talking about 2027 or 2028. Maybe Bryce Eldridge can make it. And if he does, maybe he'll give you what Vlad Guerrero Jr. could give you next week if you traded Eldridge to get him. So if you're asking me, I would do it. I absolutely would do it. Why? Because I know the Giants' history. I know how many prospects can't wait for this guy. Can't wait for that guy. They all bomb for the most part. Of every 10 guys that have been touted, 8 of them have bombed. I mean, we're talking about over like a 4-decade span. This isn't like the last year. It's not some small sample size. This is a monster, massive sample size. So they're not going to draft Vladdy Guerrero Jr. They're not going to develop a Vladdy Guerrero Jr. So get your Bryce Eldridge, and if you can get Toronto to take Bryce Eldridge and cash for Vladdy Jr., do it. Do it. There's a lot of Giants fans that watch the games and they haven't gone to the park because they just hate the way this thing has gone. But now that they've started to play some young players, it's starting to get more fun again. And if you could add a big time middle of the order presence like a Vlad Guerrero Jr. to what you got right now, I think that's it. Then you don't need to go sign the polar bear in the offseason. Then you don't have to lead your fans. I mean, here's the other thing, too. Every single time the Giants lead their fans on some wild goose chase for some hitter that they don't land, they just look worse. People start asking the questions, why not us? Why does nobody want to play here? Then all of a sudden that becomes a topic of conversation. And guess what? The more you talk about bad topics, the more it becomes reality. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you talk about how bad it is to play in San Francisco, then everybody hears that. If you talk about how no hitters want to play in your ballpark, then everybody hears that. If you can make a trade like this and Vladdy can have a big, couple months, and all of a sudden he's like, well, wait a second, Vladdy's pumping him out of Oracle Park left and right. I guess it's not that bad of a offensive yard for a dead pull hitter. I guess not. Now suddenly that whole storyline evaporates. Or you could sit on your hands, not make the trade for Vladdy, go kind of underpowered throughout your lineup, and just hope that Bryce Eldridge in 2027 gives you something that Vladdy could give you next week. So there you go. Bleacher Report had the rumor. I love it. I would go for it. Vlad Guerrero Jr. in a Giants uniform would be awesome. He is the kind of big bat. I mean, people would wear that jersey. People would buy that jersey. People would absolutely, I mean, he might have a career renaissance. Maybe in the around the Giants hitting coaches, maybe they could unlock some things that have bothered him the last year or so and get him going to where he was a couple years ago. But we're talking about a 25-year-old power hitter who's got a decade of ball ahead of him. And you might be able to get him for Bryce Eldridge, who's in the Cal League and is 19. And if he makes it, is 3 years away. Farhan, do it. Absolutely do it. Don't think twice. If you don't do it, I guarantee you, by the time Bryce Eldridge comes to the major leagues, you will be somewhere else. If you do it and you get Vladdy and you get on a nice playoff run, who knows? You might have a long, successful tenure here. It's go time for the Giants. They can't sit around anymore. They got to fight like crazy to get into that wild card spot. And they get an entertaining player, position player like Vlad Guerrero Jr. and put him in the middle of their lineup. I think the fans would absolutely love it. They'd pack the house, the energy. He would give them what Kyle Schwarber gave the Nationals a few years ago. Or was it the Phillies? I forget which team it was where he exploded. I think it was the Nationals. He had like a month of June where he had like 20 home runs. Vladdy's got that kind of juice. It would be tons of fun. I know for me, if the Giants had Vlad Guerrero Jr. in their lineup, every day before I left the house, I would look to see what time the Giants game's on, and then I would tape it because I don't want to miss any of his at-bats. Ratty used to say it all the time on KMBR. Man, Barry Bonds, love him, hate him. Nobody wants to miss his at-bats. You can say the same thing about Vladdy. Nobody wants to miss this kid swinging the lumber. And you put a guy like that at first base, and look how much better you become offensively. Now you can play, Lamont Wade in left or right. Now you don't have to play Ramos every single day. Now you don't have to play Yaz every single day. Takes a little pressure off your young outfielders. Takes a little pressure off of everybody, and you add a presence in the middle of your lineup. Farhan, Vladdy Guerrero Jr., bring him to me. All right. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Thanks to Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles for sponsoring this video. And thanks to all of you guys for supporting the Krug Show. Bring me Vladdy Jr. on YouTube.